The Gooners podcast, season 7, episode 10, a very special religious episode to kick off our week. You know, the Arsenal Podcast Society recently published a report that there are 14,872 Arsenal podcasts on YouTube. And people, I'm here to tell you, there's 14,871 that are not bringing you the special, earth-shattering, legendary content that you're about to see tonight. Tonight, we bring you not one, not two, not even 3 Jews, but 4 top Jews for the same low price, and we're all cavelling around, would you believe, Jesus. So get stuck in, grab your gefilte fish and chopped liver, throw out that ham sandwich, and enjoy the next hour of Arsenal Meshuggah on tonight's episode of the Gooners Pod.
Once upon a time, way back when there were only 9,000 Arsenal podcasts, 5 young men from various backgrounds, an Irish kid with a horrible haircut, a young Jewish nerd who hadn't discovered food yet, a child from Hemel Hempstead who didn't want to be English no more, a handsome advertising magnate with impeccable judgment, and a young Mexican AC Milan fan hatched a plan to take over the world of Arsenal podcasts. But then these boys became men. Jared, Mikey, Ewan, Magic, and Andy. And the rest, my friends, is history. And now, all these years later, you tune in every so often to hear their incredible takes, their football knowledge, and their sensual advice. But now, it's gone too far. You, our fans, are at long last witness to season
7.
Welcome to the Gooners Pod.
Welcome to the Gooners Pod. Hello, all you Gooners. It may just be the 27th of June, but it feels a hell of a lot like Hanukkah already, man. I mean, we are on track to get a new player for each slot in the menorah. And yes, this is an Arsenal yarmulke. You know, tonight we bring you a very special show. It technically started and came together about 5 weeks ago at Tollington with this beautiful picture, missing only one beautiful young lady, which is my daughter, who's actually still in London. At that point, none of us were really talking about Jesus, unless they were, you know, people walking up to James and asking for his autograph. But let's get to tonight's guest. Let's introduce him, because not only are we a bunch of Jews, not only are we talking about Jesus, about Jesus, you know, my pronunciation is going to be off tonight, but we're also not only breaking one duck, but we're breaking 2 ducks tonight. So, first of all, welcome back to the Arsenal podcast, to the Gooners podcast, James, aka LO Cool James. It was great to finally meet you in person at the Tollington last month. Thanks for coming out to support. And this is for all of you to support Gooners versus Cancer. How you been, man?
Yeah, very well. Thank you for having me on. I'm overwhelmed by that intro video and your introduction beforehand, and then your quick costume change. But I'm here. Let's go for it.
Yeah, you can see me struggling with it down.
This is going to be amazing. This is going to be absolutely amazing. I can't wait.
This is a 36-year-old. Now, would my guest know what this is called? I hope.
A talus.
Yes. Okay. It's my 36-year-old talus, which I've probably worn 4 times. But you know, you can't beat this quality. I think I got this on Etsy somewhere, and
is it Ruth Beck?
it was not Ruth Beck.
Ah, fair enough.
I got this well before I knew Ruth Beck, but yeah, this is a winner, and it's so small. You know, it doesn't even cover up enough of my baldness. But that's enough. So next, a man who's technically been on the podcast before on open mic shows, but breaking his official duck as a full-time panelist, Melvyn, the only way is Arsenal Marks. Welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. I've always wanted to be on this one. So, as you know, I've been in bits and pieces. I've been on here and there, but to come on the full one, yep.
Well,
I'm very excited about this.
We've always enjoyed your feedback and your perspective. I mean, this is a man who's lived through the ups and downs, the double winning teams, the mid-table teams, a man born during the Tom Whitaker era.
Oh,
This
come
guy
on.
hasn't just. Well, you were born during the Tom Whitaker era. I didn't say you started
55.
going during the Tom Whitaker era.
55, yeah, true.
But the man hasn't just seen 2 or 3 Arsenal managers. These guys seen 12 in his lifetime. So it's great to have you here to provide the perspective and to tell us what Birdie Me smelled like. Last but not least, a man who knows a thing or two.
I am
about
only a
spelling
boy, not a man, please.
Julian Becker, a man who I met last year, has a very interesting backstory, but I'm not sure we can even go over that here on our show. But he's headed stateside for the summer tour, so we'll be up to no good in Baltimore and Orlando. Welcome, finally, to your duck-breaking appearance, Julian.
I am so excited. I'm not 100% sure about Baltimore, but I'm 100% sure about Orlando.
Well, bad things happen in Florida, and I have a feeling they haven't seen what's about to hit it. So,
yeah, and also very good things happen in Florida as well.
That's true. That's true.
Because Arsenal are there, so you can't get better than that.
Yeah, and we are going to destroy the Orlando. I mean, we'll probably lose to Orlando actually, and beat Chelsea. But anyway, that's a show for another time. Before we get too deep into Jesus and all of that, I want to let you guys know exactly how fortunate you are to be the chosen ones, as it were, for this podcast, because we had a lot of requests from some of the most famous Jewish Arsenal podcasters, and there's more than you would think. So I'm just going to go through a quick, view of who really, really wanted to be on the podcast, and I just didn't allow them. So first, I mean, everybody knows Danny Sweetbaum. Danny, has, for 20 years has been letting his sideburns grow out, and he stopped grooming himself. But we had the panel already, so there was no room for Danny Sweetbaum. Then we got a call from Tom Cantor. Credit to James for that name, but Tom Cantor tried to come on, but I said, you're doing 9 pods a day, 10 would just be overexposure. This was a hard one because, anytime this guy comes calling to come on your podcast, you should have him on. And we had him on last Wednesday, but, Arsberg just didn't make the cut. I said, look, I don't want you getting overexposed. You were on last week, so Arsberg couldn't come on. Julian knows this guy. In fact, this is the guy that introduced Julian and I. And, I just don't know if you know that he changed his name. He shortened it from Judgenstein to just Judge.
That's it. I knew I recognized him from somewhere.
Lee Judgenstein. I have pictures of him, lifting the Torah and eating the ceremonial bread roll. But he didn't make the cut. And there's a couple more, 3 more actually. Lee's right-hand man, his partner in crime, Dan Potsfeld, way too ginger. Way too ginger to come on a Jewish Arsenal podcast, even though he is very religious. I had no idea. And then the last 2, I mean, one of them I kind of expected. I do the pod with him regularly, but Owen Youngblatt could not make it tonight. He just, he left me in the lurch. And last but not least, I mean, this one again surprised me the most. But Trupowitz.
That's him. Yeah, I think he's from my school as well.
I was going to say the last time I saw Trupowitz was at my son's bar mitzvah, which is 5 years ago, and man, was that guy the life of the party. But so none of those guys was placed in a position more venerable than the 3 of you. So we're really counting on you to essentially take over the rest of the show and let me go have something to eat. Anyway, let's jump into it. It hasn't even been announced yet. I'm taking this thing off. Hasn't even been officially announced yet, but it's as official as it ever gets around here. I mean, Gabriel Jesus is on his way to London Colney to sign some documents that officially guarantee Arsenal another 53 goals next season. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that that's happening. And we've talked about a lot of striker targets over the last 6 months. Alexander Isak, Morata, Calvert-Lewin, Ivan Toney, Tammy Abraham, speaking of Jew, Mark Carroll, Peter Carroll, all the Carrolls, Peter Crouch, Francis Jeffers. Where does Gabriel fit into your summer wish list when you consider everything, Melvyn? Price, profile, age, intangibles. I mean, how do you rate this signing compared to some of the others that we were rumored with?
Well, the price and profile is perfect, really. It's just that it's, now, it's stamped on what kind of football we're going to play next year. I mean, everyone was going for the centre forward of Everton, long high balls in the air. I think it's a one-trick pony, that guy, but there we go. That's another thing. When I saw him play at the Emirates, I think last game of the season, he was just, well, none of them were any good, but he looked the game. Not very. Everyone was pumping him up when he was playing for England, and he was an English player, so he's fantastic. But we're going to play, I think, a very fluid type of football now, especially along the forward line. They'll be interchanging the whole game now, I think. It won't be these long balls up into the penalty area. I think the only time we will do that, possibly, is from corners when the centre halves are up. So we're going to play this fast, hopefully attacking football. We can't afford to have anyone in midfield putting their foot on the ball and having a look round now. Those days are gone, especially when you've got someone like Jesus running into the box, which we haven't had for some time. He's a big step up from what we've got. Perhaps he's not 5 steps up that we needed, really, but I think he's 4 steps up. I really think he's practically there, and we don't know how he's going to fit in. Hopefully, we just fit in because he's a pure footballer. He's got the speed, he's intelligent, runs off the ball. We haven't seen him play with our midfield. So hopefully our midfield will step up. We might need a signing or two to do that. If our midfield steps up, we've got the Sakas on one side, and you've got Gabriel on the other side, and you've got Smith Rowe coming on and doing tricks as well. That type of football, I think, is going to suit us down to the ground. It's as I say, it's not the Tammy Abrahams I'd have liked, but it's a completely different team. And now, those days of crossing that ball are gone.
And it's such a massive sea change over the last couple of years to go from, where are the goals going to come from? Where's the creativity going to come from? Where's the penetration going to come from how are we going to fit all these guys onto the same 11 for a really important game? But James, where do you think Jesus fits into the kind of pecking order of, let's take Vlahovic out of the picture. Let's take Haaland and Nunez out of the picture, because they were kind of always going to go to some of your more traditional teams that are already at the top rather than trying to get back to the top. But, of the rest of those, which had some very, very good players in them, how excited are you about Jesus?
Oh, massively. I think it's a great signing for us. I think Melvyn summed it up perfectly. But as well as all that Melvyn said, he's a multifaceted player, which Mikel Arteta loves. Mikel Arteta loves if you can do more than one job for him. So, especially with 5 substitutes coming in next season, if it's not going well for Jesus down the middle, we can go, okay, maybe if Saka's tired, Martinelli's tired, or whoever, he can go on the left or the right, and you can bring Nketiah down the middle and try that. There's so many different ways that we can, facilitate this player coming in, and I'm for all of them. I think it's a really, really good signing. I've seen a lot of people say that he's never scored more than 14, I believe, goals in a league season. That's not a problem.
Messi had never scored more than 1 league goal in the season until he made it into the league.
Well, for me, the first season I was fortunate enough to have my season ticket was the double winning year. I think Dennis Bergkamp got 15 goals in the league that year. Overmars got 12. I think, Anelka got 8. I think Ian Wright got 8 as well that year because he got injured towards the end. If you've got people, like we said earlier, Saka, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, this Vieira, no one knows how good he could be. He got a lot of assists as well as a few goals. You don't really, having a 30-plus goal a season striker for Arsenal would be amazing. I'd love one. However, if he doesn't get 30, but he gets nearer 15, maybe 18, 20 in the league, and you've got all the others chipping in, which they all can do, then I don't think there's much to worry about at all. And I say, welcome to the club.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the common sentiment. I mean, the Manchester City teams of the past, I mean, how many 25 to 30 goal scorers have been on those teams? Yeah. I mean, Kun Aguero is an amazing goal scorer, but I don't remember him getting, maybe one season, but the seasons they played with 4 real target men, Balotelli, Tevez, Dzeko, and Aguero, they were sharing the love, and it to the betterment of their team. So, Julian, first of all, you've got a fan in here. We've got someone calling you the most sensible one on AFTV. That was Don Juan. And then James 2. Sorry, Melvin. You just don't do it for Don Juan, apparently.
He could have meant James from AFTV, though.
Well, I'm going with James. I'm going with this James because this is the James that's on us today. Yeah, I think that
it's definitely not me. Yeah, it's definitely the James from.
And we have a super chat. Thank you very much, Bart Vikings 23. Losing interest in football until this podcast tonight. That's kind of what's implied, I think, here. Too much anti-Semitism in it for me. Thanks for all you guys do.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Well, we are putting the pro-Semitism back into at least 1 hour a night. So anyway, the joke's getting a little bit old at this point. So, I'm going to kind of maybe pull back a little bit. But Julian, same question to you about Jesus. Is there anyone that you would have rather seen come in? And then we'll kind of switch over to, are we done yet with the striker position? And are we okay with that if we are?
Okay, well, I'd like to kind of go through a couple of things that Melvyn said. First of all, he said that the price is perfect. I'd have to disagree with that. I understand in the current climate with the fact that we're desperate for a striker and strikers are the most sought after commodity in football, that we're going to play over the odds for that. However, with just 1 year left on his contract and in effect he wasn't a first team starter for City, I'd have hoped that we could have done a deal a little bit better than what seems to be reported at 45 million. Maybe if we had Daniel Levy at the helm doing the negotiations, we would have nicked it for a little bit less.
I was not going to make I wasn't going to use the trope and the stereotype there, but you've kind of forced us to now. Well, if Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's a 40 million pound player with a year left on his deal, I think 45 is the new 25 when it comes to wanting a player with and not waiting until he's a free transfer.
Well, look,
but that's your
I think from memory, Chamberlain went for 35. He was a fantastic player. He could have been. In hindsight, we did very well to get shot of him at 35. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for us, he became a bit of a crock. Something else Melvyn said was that, and I do absolutely agree with him, that he's a definite step up from what we had. But then we didn't have anything really apart from Eddie Nketiah, who's come in. I actually like Eddie. So we were desperate for a striker. Is he a step up? Absolutely. Is he somebody that we need? Yes. Do I want him to be the only signing up front? No. I do agree that the type of football we're going to play is going to be exciting. The kind of Wenger type football that we enjoyed at the beginning of for those first 10 years, it unfortunately went gradually downhill. What I think is effective in football is to be able to mix it up a bit. So I completely take on board about Calvert-Lewin. I actually watched him twice towards the end of the season. Once, of course, in the last game of the season against Arsenal, and also earlier in the week, I got invited to the Watford-Everton game. He came on with about 20 minutes to go against Watford. He was more effective than he was against Arsenal, that's for sure. He has suffered a lot from injury. He obviously hardly played last season. I did rate him. I'm not saying that we should have bought him. He's definitely an unknown quantity at the moment as regards injuries. His career could be completely scuppered. But what I do think we need is a player in that ilk, especially with the 5 subs next season. What I'd like to see is us to have different types of football being played. It doesn't matter how good the football is. If it follows the same pattern week in, week out, it's very easy to play against. And that's what happened to Wenger. He never had a plan B. He was always playing the same type of football. And teams caught onto that. If you can mix it up and bring a different type of player on, a bigger player that can be a little bit more aggressive, can play a different way, we can mix it up. I think that's where we can really kind of push on. It's very much a squad game. So, yes, I want to see Jesus there. I do believe from what's out there that he will be the regular starter, but I don't want to see him play in every game. I don't want to see him play every 90 minutes. I want to see something different coming off the bench. It's all very well to have a player like him and make all that they're always saying, look, let's bring on some fresh legs. But I still think these are professional athletes. It's more important to bring on something different if that isn't working. So to answer your question, yes, I am very much supportive of Jesus coming. I'm extremely excited by it, but I would very much like to see another player, a different type of player, one maybe like Skamaka that I've seen a little bit of, maybe Calvert-Lewin. But again, I kind of acknowledge that he's going to be a bit more risky with his injuries, but maybe we'll be able to nick him at a cheaper price.
Well, and here's my question. I'll send it back to you, Melvyn. You can address anything that Julian said, since he clearly drilled down on some of your topics, both agreeing and disagreeing. But in the realm of target men, I don't think there's any question. Even Manchester City with those 4 forwards I talked about earlier. They had Edin Dzeko on their team, who was every bit the kind of Tammy Abraham type, Giroud type player that I think we underappreciated when he was here personally. But the players who are those guys, the Tammy Abrahams of Roma, the Dominic Calvert-Lewin, they do come with some risk, and they also come with a huge price tag on top of money that we're spending everywhere else to really bulk up our squad and our quality and our youth. Is it possible that the right move to make would be to bring in someone else at the number 9 position that could be a plan B, but maybe from the we're going to make a star rather than buy a star type of category? Maybe, there's and I don't know enough, I'm not Tom Canton or one of the other folks that really drill down a lot on the foreign leagues, but there's got to be some, 6'3" or 6'4" level, like a Wout Weghorst type, but not, a little bit more ceiling potentially than him, that we can add to our squad that isn't necessarily going to be a 70 million pound striker that we're signing to compete for minutes along with Nketiah and Jesus and maybe a false 9 every once in a while. That would seem to me like the profile of a Giroud when we bought him. He wasn't supposed to be Van Persie's replacement. Podolski was. And it turned out quite differently. So what do you think about that kind of a profile signing? I wish I had a perfect example. If you're in the chat and I'm hearing Mika Birith, which, if he was a year or two older, that might be the guy. So, maybe that's the long-term plan.
I think that if you're going to go for a big centre forward in the Giroud mould, the way the game's played now, especially with the team we've got, I think he's got to be exceptional. Only someone like the guy that Man City bought, they would have only bought a player like him. He's that good, Haaland. He's that good. Because otherwise, you buy a player, a big lad, who's not quite up to it, that level, he's easy to defend against, especially with all the other players playing football around him. We've seen it so many times the last few seasons. We've had Lacazette, who, all right, he's not with a big centre forward, he was the hold-up guy. He'd get into the box, just get into the box. And the balls would come in. They had one man to mark. He was the focal point. They had one player marking him, one just playing off him. And he didn't move anyway, Lacazette. So he was easy to defend against. The ball went across, he came out, and we were getting frustrated. This is a totally different way of playing football now. It's quick, it's incisive, it's one touch, it's movement. And as I say, I think we're quite fluid anyway in the midfield stroke forward line. And I think it'd be even better now with Jesus moving right, left on an attack. The centre halves are not going to be very happy trying to pick up him running into channels and behind them like they would do against a normal centre forward, especially if we're tapping it about. Once we play that quick football and he's moving into spaces and we've got other people moving like Martinelli. Martinelli really has been doing that type of football by himself. And even though the focus has been on him to a degree, you've got the right back looking at him, you've got also the centre half having a look because they know how good he is. When you've got him and Jesus playing up in the forward line, they're both moving and crisscrossing. I think it'd be fantastic. And I don't think if all of a sudden you bring on a lump, and that's probably being a bit nasty to the people, they're obviously very good. I think we lose our DNA. I think we've got a DNA here. And I think that when you say, Julian, for example, that we've got to mix it up, I think you've got to mix up with personnel on the pitch sometimes and tweak it. But I know Man City just bought a big one, but he's special. But look at Liverpool. They haven't got a big man and they play the same football at the same pace against everybody. They do it, and when things don't go right for them, they normally make a change that doesn't change the whole system. It keeps the same system, different personnel, and obviously it works for them. So I wouldn't like to see us now go and buy a big 6'28" centre forward. I'll tell you what I would do. I'm more interested to see now if we get a midfielder, a destroyer. We have not had a destroyer for years. And if we have to give up Tielemans, and he's a good player, don't get me wrong, he's 2 notches up than what we got. But I think we get a destroyer, it'll make us such a much, much better team. I really mean that. Because we don't, when you've got a destroyer, if you stop the other team playing, then you can play much more. The pressure's off your defence that much. And you can afford.
Yeah, and then you've got numbers on the counter attack.
Exactly, and that's what we will be doing next season with this team, I think now. But if we haven't got a destroyer, then we're back to square one. We've got our centre half, whoever it is, having a guy run at him, and it's even money. We don't want that anymore. We saw it with Holding against Spurs. We don't want that anymore. We want someone to just be that little bit in front, and then it'll change our whole concept of the way we play again. That will be another boost for us. And I think if we get that player, I don't care about another centre forward. We've got so much money. I don't know what it is. No one knows what it is. Even, nobody knows outside the club. If we've got a budget, I would prefer to spend it on a destroyer than any other position from this moment on.
Yeah, I think you've used Liverpool as an example, which was a really good example, unless you kind of count Origi as a big lump that they can bring on as a plan B. I mean, obviously, I'm a little Jewish boy at just about 5'8", but 6'1" and a big lump for me is pretty big. And I think we can still.
You're a target man, but just not for a football.
Yeah. I was built more for speed, as Melvyn knows. But I still think there is a position in the game for someone that can rough up a defence. I saw it in the Wenger years. We came across so many times against a big centre forward that basically roughed up our defence. And it can also create more room for the other faster, more nimble players around them. That they can hold it up, they can flick it on. It just gives us an extra option. If you play the same pattern, the same ball all the time, it's going to become predictable. Bring this kind of guy on if you're chasing the game, if you're drawing against a lower team or losing with 20 minutes to go, where you do need that plan B. You need to mix it up, in my view. And a big guy, and they can still play. I remember seeing that Giroud goal years ago, the scorpion kick, I think, against Crystal Palace. He was a big guy. He could hold it up. He could rough them up a little bit, but he still had the skill. Just because you're big doesn't mean you're necessarily not great on the ball. They learn skills these days from such an early age. I still believe that if we have the budget, and again, it's one thing I don't advocate is just spending for the sake of spending. We're not Manchester City. We're not Newcastle. I'm not going to count Chelsea in that bracket anymore, hopefully. I'm looking forward to them having the electric fence put back in and a car park at the back of their goal. But we are constrained by a budget. I accept that, and I don't want to see us kind of push ourselves too much financially and get into a potential lead situation. But if we do have the budget for it and we can get the player at the right kind of money, I would like to see a target man come in. And as regards a marquee signing, no, I don't want to see that. I want to see a guy on the up. I don't believe in buying a player at the height of his worth. We're not that kind of club. I've seen Real Madrid and Barcelona do it. I don't know how they do it financially, because I read somewhere that Barcelona had a wage bill of 105% of their revenue. I mean, from a business perspective,
yeah, and that's a wage bill. That's not their expenses are 105% of their revenue. That's the wages alone.
The wage bill alone, and I wouldn't advocate. It's just
before they turn. That's before they turn the lights on at the Nou Camp.
Yeah, I mean, I look forward to the lights at the Nou Camp going off.
Yeah,
and that would teach them a lesson.
It'll never happen.
Right.
But
never happen. Never
And
happens.
someone somewhere is underwriting that. I don't get why. But we're not in that bracket. So I do want to see a signing. I want to see an up-and-coming striker with a bit of size, a bit of aggression, something a little bit different from Jesus. Maybe he can play alongside him in some games. Sometimes he can come on and replace him or be a foil for him. But I do want to see something different come in. And yes, I also want to see a destroyer because I love that kind of player that can come into the midfield and basically stop the team playing. One thing I learned when I played football, that it was a lot easier stopping the opposition than it is kind of creating something yourself. And I think that, people don't concentrate enough on that position. If you stop the opposition scoring, it becomes a lot easier to win the game.
It becomes considerably easier to win the game if you can completely stop them from scoring.
Yeah,
So,
and at least you can't lose if you haven't conceded.
Exactly. So, James, I'm seeing a lot of in the chat. I've seen a lot of comments about kind of our academy players that play up front. And while I'm not necessarily as in the know about their profile, whether they're speedy, Tyrese John Jules, Mika Biereth, Muller. There's, I think, at least one or two more that are in the pipeline somewhere. I'm not saying they're ready to play significant minutes this season, but these are some of the players that are either going to have to get some minutes in the next few seasons, get loans to where their value grows, and we can sell them to fund other deals, like a normal team does, instead of like what we've been doing. And but Giroud, I mean, to me, not to harp on it, but to harp on it. Julian pointed out one of my favorite things about Giroud was that he was the guy who touched the ball last before both of Ramsey's FA Cup winning goals, before Jack Wilshere's goal against Norwich, before Rosicki's goal against, who was it, West Brom or something like that. I mean, some of the slickest moves and the best team goals we've scored, which you normally would associate with kind of a fluid front six of just speedy, guys like Jesus and Saka and Smith Rowe and Odegaard. But some of those best goals were tap-ins because of Olivier Giroud. And so I do think if you can find a player of that, of that kind of profile when they're on the up, like he was after that year of Montpellier, I'd spend that money now on him and worry about it later.
Yeah, 100%. It's just where is that? Where is that player that's going to be at the same sort of price that we got Giroud for at the time? Because if you're looking to find that kind of player now, they're gonna cost a lot of money. Like we've said earlier, strikers are at a premium. Julian, you mentioned it, that Jesus is too expensive for you with a guy who's got 1 year left on his contract. That's unfortunately the game that we're probably potentially going to have to play. And looking at it and what this club wants to do, I believe that they want to strengthen other areas, and I believe that the one area that is left is the exact area that Melvyn mentioned previously, and that is that midfield destroyer. There is, for me, only one more weak link left in this team, in that starting 11 that was there last season, and it is unfortunately Granit Xhaka. And once that is upgraded, I believe then we'll see what happens. The floodgates may open. We don't know yet, but I think that is the last position left to go for. I mean, if you want a cheap target man that's young, then go get that Cole Hudlin from Solihull Moors. He's 6'9". Just go by him.
Hey, that sounds great to me. Can you do a Rabona scorpion kick?
Well, probably not at 6'9". He'd probably trip over his own feet. But
we'll get him and Wayne Shaw.
Yeah, I mean, if not, Gabriel had the most goals for a centre back. Just do what Liverpool did to us all those years ago when they put Steven Corker up front for the last 10 minutes. Just go down that
who
route.
Would be a good destroyer then, James, to bring in? I mean, Jason Jones asked that question. Kevin Dempsey says the destroyer is supposed to be Partey. Lynn says Fofana would be ideal in our midfield, and of course we've all been talking about the potential new midfield partner for Xhaka being Tielemans. I don't look at Tielemans as a destroyer necessarily. No. So you're talking about partnering Xhaka or partnering Partey with a destroyer type, like what we looked at Victor Wanyama being years ago, or someone like that. Who are we talking about then, given that Basuma's not available.
Yeah, well, I think the guy that they're going for at the moment, it appears, is the boy from Ajax, who seems to be.
You think
quite
he'll be in
versatile.
that position? Oh, the butcher. Oh, I
Yeah,
want the butcher so bad.
I mean, I know very little about him other than the fact that he's left-sided, so that would suit the fact that you talk James that you think every weakness is covered. Tavares comes in every time that we have a problem with Tierney. I do actually rate Tavares until he's got to defend, which for me is pretty integral for a left back. He's fabulous going forward till he gets near goal, and then it ends up in the crowd. But he's so pacey.
You could be comfortable with him as a wing back in a 3 or 5 back setting, more so than a straight left back.
If you're looking for a defensive left back, which I still think is quite integral to that role, he's got a lot to learn. So I think we do need to put him out on loan, maybe for a season, get him up to speed. Because towards the end of last season, he looked totally out of his depth. I say towards the end from that FA Cup game at Forest. So if we can get this boy Martinez in, we can have cover for Tierney. Potentially, he can cover at centre back. Although I think we're okay at that position. But from all accounts, he can play at defensive midfield. And with a name like the Butcher, I think he could be your man.
They had me at, when I found out that the guy's name was the Butcher, I put him in all my spreadsheets yesterday as T Butcher, not L Martinez. I'm listing all the potential players and their wages and fees on my financial podcast. And I will not call him Lisandro Martinez under any circumstances. He is the Butcher. I'm getting the Butcher on the back of my shirt. I haven't been this excited about somebody since Monchi, and we didn't end up getting Monchi. So I'm kind of trying to keep it low key, but just because of his name, I don't even care that he's apparently a really, really, really good player. I just want a guy named the Butcher on the team. So,
Mike, this Seko Fofana from Lens as well that we've been linked with. I know Newcastle were looking at going big for him. I hope we can get in there before they do. He's another one who's a really, really good player. And what also he's good at defensively, he's very, very good at distributing the ball, which is amazing, especially if you've got the likes of your Martinelli and your Jesus and your Saka in full flow. Because if you remember the goal against Newcastle that Martinelli scored, that come from that lofted through ball from Tomiyasu, which didn't get enough credit for me. The finish by Martinelli was what got all the plaudits. But I'm like, no, rewind it back and appreciate that pass, because you don't get goals like that unless those balls come in. That's what you dream of when you play as a striker, just someone who can ping you a ball like that over the top. And this Fofana's amazing at it. I briefly watched the game that.
So this is not Wesley Fofana, then. This is
no. This is a different. He played against PSG, and they drew 1-1. I just remember briefly having it on, and I remember just turning to my father at the time when we were watching it together, going like, "Who is this guy?" Because where is it? This guy's got to get signed for something. He just stopped everything. I know a lot of people, give the French league not the best plaudits going, and they think it's quite a dead league and whatever. But this guy really stood out, and in a game where you're playing against PSG. When the names that they have, when you're standing out, he was really, really good in that game. Well, but again, that was just brief. I haven't seen a whole full 90 minutes of the guy and everything else. I'm just going off.
I've seen
reaction.
Zero. The one thing I never do, I just avoid the temptation is to go and look at these YouTube compilations when we're ranked. I
can go in my garden and do some tricks with a football and put house music over the top. You'd think I'm messy.
The breakdowns, when you start talking to the journalists like Tom Canton does, like FK has been doing. In fact, don't leave right now, but I think he's doing a Butcher breakdown at this moment right now with a Portuguese journalist. I'm happy having my Jews with me personally, but I haven't seen a minute of him. I didn't even see a picture of him until last night, but I just, the guy is my favorite Arsenal player of all time right now. Quick shout out to the chat. We've got 60 strong of you in here, which is great numbers. iGamer, what are you guys moaning about today? I don't hear much moaning, and you generally don't hear a tremendous amount of moaning on the Gooners pod. So So thanks for that contribution. Sophie's in the house. Guy Lunner is in the house, who I just want to ban just for the pure fact that he's named that, but he doesn't seem to be of the same ilk. Daniel Roberts in here. Lynn Simpson, Arnie from Iceland in the house. Dempsex here. A lot of other people. Jason been contributing. Mark McCraden, Pedro. Thanks everybody for joining us. Stefan's in the chat, and please remember to I almost never say this during a podcast, but slap a like on it if you like what you're hearing. Subscribe. You can either subscribe to the YouTube channel or by going to tgpsubscribe.me, not .mike, but just .me, and subscribe. So I did a podcast yesterday. It was a pre-recorded podcast about Arsenal finances because, people have been saying, where is all this money coming from, that Arsenal's spending now? And it's actually kind of interesting because the answer is a little nuanced. It's not just, oh yeah, Kroenke's finally investing in the team, but it's also not that. And there's a lot of long-standing issues that go back to why all of a sudden we have the money that we have to spend this December, this June, last June, and so forth. So if you want to catch that, just go to our YouTube channel as well. So Melvyn, any other Rafinha we haven't talked about yet? Just another creative, attacking, strong player that we have here. And in the light of how we've talked about the specific areas of our squad that we need to strengthen, are you concerned? I'm going to predict that you're a little concerned that we're thinking about spending 60+ million on this guy rather than licking your lips and saying, let's just get as much depth as we can. Am I wrong about that? Or how are you?
No, you're not wrong. You're dead right. If we've, as I say, if the pot is so big and we're taking a lot of it to buy a player that we're not even sure wants to come for us for the right reasons, then I'm not for it. He's a terrific player, don't get me wrong. But I think that's not our weakest point, attacking on the wide. So, even Jesus can play there as well. No, we've got other positions to worry about. If we get the other positions done and it's the cherry on the top, we go, look, we got this over. We just found another 60 million for a player that we can coerce to play for us, then all right, we'll do it. But I'd rather, obviously, look for other targets in other areas, and then I'll be happier. We still haven't got a left back, a deputy left back. If for Tierney, which there's a chance every match that he might get injured. I'm not having a go at him. He's a great player, and I love him playing for the Arsenal. But if he goes for a run of like 4 or 5 games that he's out, which does happen, then we're struggling again. I don't want to be in that position. I don't want the guy. I don't want to say have our midfielder like Xhaka. I don't know if he's going to be with us next year, but if he is with us next year, I don't want suddenly him playing left back for any reason on this planet. That can't happen, because if we're playing a decent team, we will be exposed. If we're playing a team who's got a decent right-sided attacker, we're going to be exposed. So that could never happen. We've got to fill that position in as well. Please, let's not double and treble up on certain positions. Let's spend our money where we've got one fantastic footballer, but we're one injury away from not having a great footballer in a very important position. So no, I wouldn't want to see that. And is he waiting for Barcelona? That's the thing I don't like. We had that with that forward in the winter. The centre forward thinking about joining us, and he really wanted to go somewhere else. You don't want that, and I don't think Arteta would want that either. He says,
I think if they're really going after him, I think there's been some conversations. I mean, there could be something to that. We don't want to take someone who's picking us, second best or third best, but that doesn't concern me as much as someone who's basically come out and said, I don't want to go anywhere but Vlahovic, who's the center forward. Vlahovic is the center forward you're talking about, and Arsenal absolutely. I mean, we know this for a fact from Gab Marcotti, who told us that we had essentially an agreement with a number of teams with Juventus, but the player had absolutely no interest in going anywhere. I'm sorry, with Fiorentina, the player had absolutely no interest in going anywhere other than Juventus, though, and so we never actually made a formal offer to the player, but. The Rafinha thing seems to be a little bit more nuanced. Julian, let us know what your feeling is about Rafinha, and then if you in the chat have any user questions that you'd like to for me to send around the horn in the panel, I will be happy to ask them.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at Rafinha, he was definitely the standout player for me for Leeds. He has a similar goal ratio, about 33% as Jesus does, in a much lower class team. Leeds, I mean, Leeds and Man City are opposite ends to the Premier League, and quite rightly so. I mean, I saw a little bit of Leeds last season, and they were very, very poor. And Rafinha still stood out as a player that was quality. The other thing I quite like about him, and some people might question his attitude, is the fact that he does care. He gets very hysterical. I've had a lot of experience with Brazilians because I married one, so I think they definitely have an edge to them, and I like that. It went really well until it didn't go well. And I'm just hoping
that's football for you, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just hoping
you could say the same about Alexis.
Yeah, I mean, look, all I can say is Martinelli has renewed my faith in Brazilians. So it's all good now with me and Brazilians. But
when you told me you went out a while ago and got a Brazilian, I did not realize that you meant. I thought you were talking about something else.
Yeah, no, it was a very expensive holiday, that one. So if we look at Rafinha, there could be a number of reasons why he's coming. Would I want him? Yes. As I think it was one of you said it, I'm not sure whether it's Melvyn or James, said you don't want to see us triple up in one position. Now, I don't think we're going to be tripling up. One thing about Pepe is that I don't think he's a poor player, but for me, calling him a £72 million player is way off the mark. For me, he's more of a £10 million player with £62 million in someone's back pocket. He's definitely not up to the job. It's not worked out for him. His confidence is down. When he's come on, he's looked like a liability. Arteta obviously doesn't rate him. He wouldn't even bring him on much towards the end of last season. I hardly saw any of him. I remember all that
lovey-dovey stuff after AFCON coming back and Pepe's a new player and all that. Almost thought, all right, final chance to see this guy actually, be worth something and be salvageable for our club. And it just, again, some people will blame Arteta for not allowing Pepe to do that, but those same people are not watching 5-6 days of training. Outside of the 90 minutes.
I'm not seeing 5-6 days of training, but what I've seen of him is you bring him on when all's lost. He's the last throw of the dice, like the game against Wolves, where he came on with 20 minutes to go, and I think it was one of the only games last season where we came from behind and actually won the game. But I saw him come on,
which was as much because of this guy than Pepe as well that game.
Yeah, but Pepe instigated it. He was great. Give him credit. He was involved heavily in the 2 goals, and things changed around when he came on. However, I also saw him come on against Villa when we were 1-0 up, and he nearly gave the game away. He was the one that gave the free kick away, gave the ball away a number of times. You never quite know what you're getting with him. He's not really up to it. I don't think he's going to fit in. So I would say that they'll probably just try and recoup whatever they can for him this summer. I've been quite surprised that he doesn't seem to be linked with anyone, but that may well be a reflection on what other teams actually think of him. And we're definitely going to take a haircut on that one. We're not going to get anywhere near what we paid for him. And whatever we get will probably be a bonus. It's not worked out for him. It's not worked out for us. I think he's on the way. Saka, there's been no talk of him going anywhere, although he's only now got 2 years left on his contract. The fact they're in for Rafinha, I don't want to think this, but the cynical side of me thinks that maybe they'll try and cash in on Saka. And if he's not willing to sign the contract with 2 years to go, we'll get really decent money for him. And I don't think that would be a bad thing for us. If you look at how Liverpool instigated their great team, they instigated it because of the fact that they got massive money for Coutinho and they used that money wisely.
And Suarez.
Yeah, and Suarez, but the Coutinho one was a big one. I think they got something like 108 million for it. Something outrageous. And they reinvested that. So although you say that Liverpool fans were massively upset by losing Coutinho, what they got, they lost a great player, but on the back of that, they got a fantastic team that went on to win the league for the first time in 20, 30 odd years for them. So it could mean that they're getting Rafinha in because they know Saka's on the way.
I don't think they know that, but it could be a protective move just in case that happens. But Melvyn, you want to chime in?
I think that if Arsenal sells Saka for 150 or whatever it is, it will send out the wrong message about our club. I think all the goodwill that's been the last season, there's been a lot of goodwill with our club, with the fans, the last 12 months, and rightly so. To a certain degree, we played some very good football, got some young kids in. They're all fighting for their places, which looks good. The youngsters most certainly. If we suddenly sell a homegrown kid who's done so much for us in such a short space of time to anybody, even if it's 150 rand, I'm sorry, this club, the people will lose faith in the club. I really believe that. And it's not as if we can get 150 and go, you know what we can do? We can spend it on this guy and that guy. We could probably, well, it's looking like it now, we're probably spending that money anyway. Liverpool did it because it was over the top bid, number one, and they knew what they needed, and they were in trouble for money, Liverpool at the time.
They also sent both of those players to the same place outside of the Premier League, and if Saka is sold, you know exactly where he's going.
Exactly.
And we're going to be playing him twice a season, if not more.
It was bad enough watching Robin van Persie play against us for the last 2 or 3 seasons of his career. It looked wrong. It felt wrong. It hurt in the heart to a degree, being an Arsenal.
And he drove a stake in our heart because he was incredible that season.
Yeah, he was. He won. He helped big time United win the league. Well, some of the goals he scored was fantastic. But I don't want. I mean, yeah, money's one thing. I think you've got to take them. For us as supporters, I know we talk about it a lot, but you've got to take the money out of the equation because it's not our money. We've got no control. And you say he's 72 million Pepe. Believe me, I feel the same way about Pepe if he costs 22 million. He's limited. It's a liability. And if you're a team that wins games 4-0, you can afford to have him in your side because you can afford a person to play one every 5 games. We can't afford that where we are. And I think that, as I say, we've got a lot of goodwill. We've got, we've got a song now, very good. But when I've gone to when I've gone to the Emirates last season, there's been a big change. We've got new, I don't know what it is. It's a little bit better football. There's a bit of belief. There's a bit of, if we suddenly are selling people like that, and I feel the same about Smith Rowe as well. For me, I just think, to me, he's my favourite Smith Rowe. He really is. There's something about him. He's a natural. Oh, they're all natural, but he's something about him. He gets me off my seat. I love watching him.
Well, and he said he wants to. I mean, he's come out and said, which doesn't. This is not a verbal contract, but he said he wants to spend the rest of his career at Arsenal if it's at all possible. I mean, he absolutely loves it here. Which, ironically, he'd be the one that you would think would be looking at his future and saying, I'm not starting games anymore because of all these people that are signing. But I think he gets it and would rather be part of a team that can compete on all fronts. Now, the thing with Saka is I don't think anybody's looking to sell Saka. I don't think anyone's looking to have Saka leave on a free. And in fact, I've seen some very, very unverified reports that have said his new contract is essentially in the works or nearly done, which would be a huge relief. The biggest possible signing of all over the summer. But if it is made clear by him, whether it's this summer or throughout sometime in this season, that he has no intention of extending his deal, then you don't have a choice. I mean, because,
that's different. That's different. No, that's different. I thought if you're talking about we're looking to get money for him because he's a commodity that's worth a lot of money. Let's get the money now when he's worth a fortune. I think his values are on the rise. But if it becomes clear that we are, that he is either wanting Ozil money or
or is just gonna really play this whole thing out until the very end, and keep us from essentially being able to plan around him, like players. I mean, even Philip Coutinho extended his contract after saying he wanted out of Liverpool, which allowed Liverpool to get the price that they did for him and to plan and build and scout replacement players, or strengthen in the other positions, keep tabs on Van Dijk and so on. And so he did them a solid, even though things were not great between the club and Coutinho. I don't see Saka being in that category. I think Saka's a great kid with a great family, who, we don't know that much about his advisors and his agents, other than they have other players for Arsenal that they advise. But I just really don't see that happening. And when I don't want something to happen, I usually don't envision it happening. But I think that all this talk about Saka leaving and, is it a free? Is he sold to City? What's going to happen? I think is going to end up being redundant and obsolete in the very near future.
But Mike, Saka's not stupid, right? Like you said, he's got teammates at the club that have the same agent as him, right? He's got Balogun that went on loan last season, didn't even really make any first team appearance apart from the Brentford game, where, I thought he was just thrown out to the Wolves pretty much, bless him. He's on more money than him. So he'd go, well, hang on a sec, he doesn't even play and he earns more than me. And then he's got Nketiah, who, towards the end of the season, come in, done his job and showed facets of his game that the fans didn't think that he had and improved. Is it worth $100,000 a week? Probably not, but that's what's paid. That's what's happened. So we'll deal with it. So he's looking at that going, well, hang on a sec. They're both on more than me. I'm literally your best player. I'm your star man. Every advertising campaign, everything, him holding the little dog with the picture. I'm like, I'm your main guy. I need to be paid, if not the same as Partey, or more than him, because I'm doing, as well as doing all the stuff on the pitch, all the extracurricular stuff that you want, community stuff, advertising stuff. I'm the big man for that. So I need to be paid as such. And I think as well, if he's not stupid, because he's looking at what's going around. The two clubs that will buy him, we all know who they are, and that's Liverpool and Man City, right? If Salah does not get his $400,000 a week that he wants from Liverpool, Real Madrid will find a way to do it, and he will go. Do you not think Liverpool are going to not go for him then? Of course they are. And City don't want Mahrez anymore. And Bernardo, if Barcelona can sort their lives out, Bernardo Silva wants to go to Barcelona. He doesn't want to stay there anymore. So they're looking for a left-footed winger as well. I mean, the guy's got all the leverage in the world, but I personally think he will want to stay. But the club have to match the ambition of this player, because he's not going to stay if we do not make top 4 next season, which we have to do.
And that's always the thing, we got players saying that they want, like Lacazette saying they want to leave and play Champions League football when they're part of the reason that we didn't make Champions League football. Yeah. I'm not saying that Saka is responsible for 5th and 8th place over the last couple of years. He's been the shining light that's allowed us to even finish that high. But it's going to be about, does he envision himself wanting to have a Tony Adams-esque type of career where he spends his entirety of his career here and then gets a Saka statue outside of the stadium? Does he want to be that guy for the Arsenal? If we keep getting 6th, 7th, 8th place, then he's going to be the guy who just didn't have enough ambition to go ever win anything. Obviously, I think we're ahead of that track now. I think we're on the Liverpool track. And if we are, I don't know why he wouldn't want to commit his future. Maybe it's a 3-year deal instead of a 5 to give him the flexibility so that he can go get that huge 25-year-old deal at some point, either from us or someone else. But, I think Jesus is going to be on about 200. Partey's on 200. Those are now the high wage earners at Arsenal. I don't think any of the other signings that we're signing are going to be anywhere near 200 a week. So I think Saka's gonna probably be put on 220, symbolically and importantly be our high wage earner. And in 2 years, we may be looking at that as a massive bargain. But we don't know what's being said behind the scenes. We don't know what's been discussed.
The thing as well, Mike, is that people worry about how much you're paying these people because they get memories of Aubameyang, they get memories of Ozil, right?
How much you're paying doesn't matter if the effort doesn't like
there
if
you
you're not
go.
just all of a sudden a fat cat because you're making the money.
That's it. And I mean, Aubameyang at the time, you had to renew him because if Mikel did not renew him after how he performed in that cup run, people would have been wanting it. I know people want him sacked now, but by God, they would have gone berserk if he didn't renew Aubameyang back then. And then Ozil just got what he wanted because he was Ozil. We know no one had the guts to stand up to him.
No, I actually think the Ozil deal, I blame Wenger for that one. It was one of the most selfish acts of a manager that we've had in our history. It was a few months. It was the January transfer window before he finally went. He was clinging on by his fingernails to that job.
It was a reaction to Alexis essentially stropping.
Yeah, I mean, he was faced with losing what he perceived to be his two best players. He then saddled us with, how can I describe Ozil? A parasite for the next 3 to 4 years. A guy that, I mean, I always say success in every walk of life is governed by 3 factors. Number one, natural ability. You can't argue that Ozil didn't have natural ability. He had it in the bucket loads. But the other 2 things are attitude, which was stinking. His attitude was absolutely stinking. He put everything above his love for Arsenal. There was no love for Arsenal. And the third one was work rate. The guy couldn't even be bothered once he got that contract. He was done, absolutely done. He was an absolute parasite, and I blame Wenger for that. And the management ahead of him gave him too much control, and he did that to save his own skin and saddled us for years. I think he was the virus within that squad for years to come until we got shot of him. And once we have got shot of him, Arteta got shot of him, I think things have been very much on the up.
Well, compare the first half and the second half of the 2019-2020 season.
Yeah.
No, it was the 2020-21 season where we played Chelsea on Boxing Day and got rid of Ozil a couple of weeks later, and his cronies, and the whole thing changed. I mean, I've harped on about that over and over again. I thought that January transfer window where we essentially paid 3 guys to leave and signed no one other than Matt Ryan and Odegaard on loan was one of our best transfer windows ever.
To get shot of him, my endearing memory of Ozil was him sitting at Brighton under an umbrella, keeping the sun off him.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember that picture.
Yeah.
One last question from the chat, and then we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for sticking with us for an hour. Thanks to all 72 of you in live chat. I can't see how many thumbs up we have, but if you don't mind giving us a like, I'd appreciate it. The final question is one from quite some time ago from iGamer. It's especially apropos after last night with Stan Kroenke's environment, his corporation KSE owning 3 now, 2 major and 1 minor National League championships in America in lacrosse, American football, and ice hockey. Do you think he's developing an appetite for winning that will spill over us? What I resist is when people start uneducatedly saying, well, now they can spend that championship money on Arsenal. There's no championship money. It's all built in American sports beforehand. You got more for hosting the Super Bowl than they got for winning the Super Bowl. That's for sure. But anyway, aside from the financials of it, do you think that the last year is, I mean, somehow they're like, wow, winning really feels good. Let's now turn our attention to Arsenal and make that happen? Or do you think that I mean, they were going to try to win at Arsenal either way? Or what's your take on that? James, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think, all the renovations that we're doing change the pitch to ice, and we'll smash it. That seems to be the way. No, I've always said, Mike, about the Kroenkes. People are still leveling at them that they don't spend the money. You can't do that anymore. There's a lot of things you can blame them for, but in terms of spending money, that's not something that you can anymore for me. They've nearly done $250 million with just 1 manager. Do you know what I mean? It's insane. If that's any other club, You'd be saying to them, well, what have they spent it? You know, how have they spent it? Where have they spent it? Which I think is what you can blame them for. You can go, some of what you've spent has been silly, but that happens. You know, that, like we said earlier, that's football. But no, I just want to see, you know, show me it on the pitch. You know, let's see what happens. That's all we can do. There's still a lot that I think needs to be done. Pre-season's going to be very interesting. You know, if we get these players in that we're all, you know, rumored to be getting in, I'll be very, very happy. But as we've spoken before earlier in the show, the two biggest signings that you can do now for me are extending Saka and extending Saliba. And the minute that Saliba, if he does choose to stay, signs that contract, as soon as I get to America, I'll be going to him and Ben White when it's Crystal Palace on that Friday, first game of the season. I don't know which one of you two is going to partner, Gabriel, but you get a half each in all these games we're playing in America, and you show me. You whatever you've got, you prove to me. Because people go, oh no, he'll stick with Ben White. Ben White's tried and trusted. Maybe, but I would be going, show me what you got, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. One of the things, Julian, about the the taste of winning and that sort of thing is when you think about how they've won their 2 championships in America, it isn't because Stan Kroenke and Josh Kroenke have gotten into the weeds. And I mean, all Stan can think about is his real estate project, which is SoFi Stadium, and getting a return on his investment in that. The fact that the team's winning is nice. You get to go, you know, in America, and I hate this, the owners are the ones who literally are handed, well, not in hockey, but the owners are the ones that are handed the trophy, and then they give it to their team. And I would hate to see that in football. Can you imagine, you know, them handing the FA Cup or the Premier League trophy on the pitch to John Henry or to Sheikh Mansour and having him act like he did it? The Kroenkes had nothing to do with it, but what they've done in those 2 teams specifically is they've hired tremendous people and gotten the formula right with youth and up-and-coming managers rather than paying someone based on what they've done in the past, and some team DNA as they've done in Colorado. So with Joe Sakic, I think they've tried a few times, failed a few times, but might now have the formula for that. And given that they do like winning and they see that winning begets winning, maybe they are a little bit more willing to say, you know what, when Adu comes calling to me and says, look, man, I know we're kind of pulling a madness this season, but A, I need more barbecue meat, and B, I need another left back. They might say, you know what, if you're telling me we need one, then I'm good with that. Do you see any validity in that, or just?
Well, I have to say 100% disagree with you, Mike, on that one. That this idea of the owners picking up a trophy when they've got nothing to do with the success of the team. For me, they are at the very pinnacle. They're at the top of the organisation. In the same way that I would blame them for putting the wrong people in. They put too much faith in Wenger. I can understand the reasons why. They never didn't spend money, in my view. They just wasted a lot of money because they had the wrong people around them. Yeah. You would blame them because they put the wrong people into the wrong jobs, or they accepted the wrong people into the wrong jobs. And one thing I think they're definitely getting right now, and you can put it down to a little bit of, I mean, when did they actually take over Arsenal? I know they sort of turned up in April 2007, but for me, they didn't have full ownership till I think 2018. So I kind of give them a little bit of a pass for those first. Well,
sorry, Julian, I just want to point out that because we're getting close to the end here, that we had about a 30-minute conversation on the Gooner Talk with Tom Canton earlier today about exactly that. You know, what is the difference between 2007 to 2018 and 2018 to 2022? It's, I mean, I agree with you 100% on that. You know, I just that could be a 30-minute conversation in and of itself.
Oh, I could do hours on that. But in summary, I would say if Arsenal are winning, ultimately we thank the Kroenkes for that because they're at the top. When Arsenal are losing, then we blame the Kroenkes because they're at the top. So for me, I totally disagree with that statement. I think that there is a case for them picking up a cup and being there because they're ultimately responsible for us winning and losing.
I know, but I mean, am I the only one who would vomit if maybe it's just because it's them, but I mean, I like to see the coach and the players reap the rewards. I know that they're paid, and I know how a hierarchy works, but it's just like it just seems in really bad taste. A true manager of men, or a director of a large organization has more input and less glory, and is happy with that.
Well,
so,
I mean, I have to say that I'm head of the organisation I work at, and I will always take the glory.
Well, that's I don't doubt that, having known you just the 6 months that I've known you, you do want the glory shot. I know that.
Absolutely.
Julian, and I'm going to pass it around to you, Melvyn, again. But let's kind of do our outros while we're here. Julian, where can we find you, since you do not participate in the lovely Twitter?
Where can you find me? I live in North London. Is that the answer?
You could either talk to us about your other social media, or you could just give us your home address. And
okay. I'm trying to look to what it is, because I had it set up by one of the girlies at AFTV. She set me up on Instagram. I'm just looking what it is. It's Julian89 AFC. And I have to say that the 89 wasn't the year that I was born. Unfortunately, 89 was the symbolic of the greatest night of my life, which was May 26th, 1989.
And you got married the same night as Arsenal won the league?
Yeah. No, I wasn't actually married then. I mean,
you were in Brazil that night, I believe.
Yeah,
and that's a very good segue, by the way. Before we get to Melvyn, we have 72 hours left to get in for this raffle. I believe all of you guys are in the raffle. There's about, as of about an hour ago, there were 70 tickets. Technically, there were 69, but that would be too me to point that out. But there's just under 70 tickets remaining out of 500 to win this amazing 89 shirt. I'm not going to play the video because it'll take another minute and a half, but go to goonersvcancer.com if you want to get into this, or if you want to buy any more entries before it closes out. The deadline is 10 p.m. UK on Thursday, and then we're going to draw for the winner live on the Gooners podcast starting at 9:30 on Friday evening UK time. Someone's going to win something amazing to put on their wall, and it
looks like a fantastic prize. Who wrote who wrote on it? Was that one of the players?
Well, it was 4 of the players. On the top, it's Arsenal come streaming forward, and what surely must be their last attack.
Obviously,
then signed by John Lukic.
Famous commentary.
Yep. Okay. Brian Moore's commentary. Then John Lukic signed there. Good ball by Dixon, finding Smith, signed by Lee Dixon. For Thomas, charging through the midfield, Thomas, signed by Alan Smith. And, of course, it's up for grabs now. Thomas right at the end, signed by Michael Thomas. And that's something that you cannot get anywhere other than through Gooners versus Cancer. So we hope to hit our goal of getting 500 entries. That'll be just over £10,000, $12,500 raised for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And then we're just getting started for the summer locally in Orlando, Baltimore, later in the summer in London, and online. So lots of cool stuff to come. And thanks for mentioning 1989. Melvyn, I forgot even what the final question that we were talking about was.
Where can you find me? Right.
Well, but even before that, I think
we'll talk about Kroenke. Would you see him picking up?
Yeah, is he getting that appetite for winning, or do you put any stock in that whatsoever?
No, I think very quickly the appetite for him is bottom line. If he wins games if he wins trophies on the way, it's great for him. It's not the be on and end all. The be all and end all is the money. End of. That's number one. And number two, you can rest Mike, because he won't be picking up any trophies. Kroenke Stanley won't, because he never goes to the games anyway. So don't worry about that. Right.
Well, and that pinstripe suit that he wore to the FA Cups, I think, is probably in the garbage at this point.
Yeah, he hide it for the day. You can find. You want to know where you can find me? Most people don't, but it's as it says here on Twitter. Melvyn, the only way is Arsenal Marks, and I do. I'm a regular on Over and Over Again with Richard.
Now, and you're a regular on a podcast called Over and Over and Over Again. So you basically appear on that podcast over and over and
every
over
time. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Melvyn, thanks for joining us. It was great to finally have you on. I appreciate your great opinions. And James, you started on the whole Kroenke thing, so let's just finish off with where we can find you. Are you or are you not getting back into more regular podcasting? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so just LL Cool James 91 on Twitter at the bottom there, and literally everything that I do is on there. So, Purely Arsenal FP is on there, where we just talk purely about Arsenal, nothing else. And then James Johnstone Football on YouTube is my own channel. I reached 140 subscribers the other day. I know that's not much, but for me and my friend just talking rubbish about football and conspiracy theories when we get bored of talking about football, that's pretty impressive, We once had a big discussion about if plastic should go in volcanoes, and then we got told that that's a really bad idea.
Those are the important things that people, you'd be surprised what Arsenal supporters or just people in general tune into here.
Yeah, what favorite Arsenal player would we like to go to a buffet with, and why?
We do Danny the GFP and I do a show called Sunday Roast every Sunday night at 9 p.m. that we've done 20 of them, and it just boggles my mind that one, much less 25 to 35 people tune into that to listen to us waffle about stuff. So must be doing something right. But thank you, James, for joining us. Please go to tgpsubscribe.me if you want a quick link to subscribe to the Gooners podcast. Set that bell so that you can hear when we go to do content, which right now is coming fast and furious. Please, again, go to goonersvcancer.com. Through Friday, it will be about the shirt. After Friday, it'll be about a bunch more very cool stuff, contests, raffles, prizes, killing cancer, all of that good stuff that we want to do. I'm going to give the last word to Manali Cream in the chat, which is a name I don't recognize, but he's quite rightly said Oi Gewalt, and I think that pretty much sums up what this podcast was all about. So thanks again for joining us. Take care. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow night with a guest to be announced.